From the EMA Web TV studio, we have Massimo Bitonci, the Undersecretary of the Ministry for Business and Made in Italy. Let's immediately get started. Made in Italy ministry. This is really important. Yes, of course. We have changed the name of the ministry, and that was done deliberately because Made in Italy is a brand which is used all over the world. There were some criticisms at the beginning for using the English language, but when you're traveling around the world, the word, the expression is used by everyone, but that applies to other sectors as well, such as the agri-food industry, accounting from 1/3 of the Italian GNP, and other typical products, such as fashion, you know. Made in Italy has become a brand, an absolute brand. Internationally, people are looking for Made in Italy products in food, fashion, and other fields of excellence. Let's talk about agricultural mechanization and 5.0 as well. Well, Transition 5.0. This is a very important subject that was funded by the remodulation of the PNRR funds, and there was a long-standing negotiation at a European level with the EU Commission, and it took some time for the regulation to be drafted and then the implementing decree, because it accounts for 6.3 billion euros. And then there's Industry 4.0, totaling 13 billion euros. Tax credits accounting for 35 to 45% are included. But there's a rule that companies should be supported throughout the ecological and digital transition. And of course, this is a very complex framework, and we're trying to streamline the process in order to reduce energy consumption, which has to be calculated in percentage terms, if it's over 3%, over 6 or 10%. So the tax credits increase with the increased reduction in energy consumption by the business. Then, investments from January 1st of 2024 were included. It was announced last year, so investments were included retroactively from January 1st, 2024. It will end at the end of 2025 on December 31st. As stated this morning at the conference, we are already working on extending it till April 2026. But, you know, a negotiation is ongoing with the EU Commission, because such large, tax credits need a longer term to be affected, because when a company decides to make an investment, they have to order the equipment. The equipment has to be manufactured, delivered, and commissioned, and then it has to start operating. So they need more time. How did the companies respond? The business community? Well, the business community responded well. Numbers are still limited, though. Over the next few weeks, we expect to see a considerable increase. The procedure is quite complex, because you need an ex-ante certification as well as an ex-post certification to certify reduced consumption. So, and this, you know, the energy transition. So tax credits going from 35 to 45%, but if you buy European-made photovoltaic panels, so not coming from all over the world, they have to come from Europe, you may get up to 62% of tax credit. Let me inform you that we're working to increase the tax credits and change the brackets, because the highest level is for investment to 2.5 million, and we want to increase it to 10 million. So in order to give more room of maneuver to the businesses, we have so been working on agriculture and agricultural machinery. And you know, this is what this amazing exhibition is about. It's the most important, or the second most important such exhibition in Europe, because we are taking requests from trade associations on board, and we try and give an answer to frequently asked questions. We provided an update on the replacement of machinery, especially tractors, the new tractors. So they don't need to demonstrate sale, but only the fact that they are no longer used. So this is not always easy in agriculture, but that was mentioned in this FAQ. It has to be streamlined. There's still much to be done. It takes many steps to get there. The ministry is working on it. I've been in touch with all trade associations to reach out to myself and the ministry, because, you know, the different requests and demands can be then passed on to the people concerned for answers to be provided to farmers and companies. It is my pleasure to have a group of journalists here with us during this interview, and I'd like to give them a chance to ask their questions, if any. So if you have any questions for the Undersecretary, you'll be given a microphone. Wait for the microphone, please. I see some hands up. The increase from 2 to 10 million, how long should it take? And how about the limited figures, the numbers? Can you give a sort of reference in quantity terms? The changes are being worked on in these days by the legislative office and by the technical office of the minister. These changes will have to be turned into legislation as they concern the implementing decrees as well. About the timeline, the first amendment should be linked to the budget law, so, and others will come later. What was the other question? It's out of microphone. But anyway, numbers may vary. Numbers change, vary every day. Now in the order of some tens of million euros, not much as yet. As I said before, you need a preliminary certification, so you need a technical expert that has to perform a preliminary inspection of the equipment and installation, and that process takes some time. So we opened a contact point in August. Now it's early November, so it will take some time. Probably the next few weeks we'll get an increase in flow. So probably the applications come from the ones that were ready. They had already bought machinery, and the certifying body had already prepared their applications. So starting in the month of August, you know, the business started mobilizing on it. Ottavio Repetti from Terra e Vita, another journalist. I have a question, two questions actually. Renewal and low percentages. So you're coming after Agriculture 4.0 at the replacement of old tractors, but this the numbers could be increased by encouraging, you know, scrapping of obsolete machinery that could be linked to these incentives and tax credits. And here I have a comment on the compulsory revision of tractors, compulsory inspections that not everybody are complying with. Old machines that are not regularly inspected and approved. Well, this morning, as I was visiting the different pavilions and halls, I've seen considerable technological innovation that has probably been going on for the last 10 years. The main focus being on workers' safety, occupational safety. The new tractors are equipped with the sensors, and when they're moving, they stop whenever meeting a person or an obstacle to prevent crashing. So many accidents have happened over the last few years with tractors, and that has to be remedied. There's certainly a secondary market of second-hand tractors. That's an important market, and we need to encourage and support it, the same as we do with private cars and other agricultural equipment, and we can do so by promoting subsidized scrapping, as the case was for cars. We still have over 10,000 cars that are Euro 0, 1, 2, and 3. So it is a very large fleet, even for heavy vehicles that are very old, among the oldest in Europe, and that's probably going to be the same for tractors. Clearly, scrapping must be encouraged. Nobody's going to scrap their old tractors if no incentives are provided, considering that this equipment is extremely complex and expensive, because a tractor is a complex machine that has to perform functions that were not even conceivable in the past. I've seen examples of functions that can be performed by tractors, as well as all agricultural machinery, functions that were absolutely unthinkable in the past, or were totally impossible in such a complex world as agriculture. And then, of course, operators have to be able to use the machine correctly. Let me add one comment. Here, training is extremely important. The agricultural machine operator's role has changed over the years. Now they need considerable skills. They have to be trained for that. So 10% of tax credits, according to this legislation, can be used for training up to 300,000 euros. So that is meant to encourage a training. You buy a piece of equipment and you can spend money on training, these machines being digital and complex, and the operators have to be trained accordingly. Any additional questions for our Undersecretary here? Are you all satisfied with the answers? Well, Mr. Undersecretary, Italian companies are excellent, but we need to support them from a political point of view. Yes, you're right. It is an extremely complex world that plays an essential role in the Italian and European economy. The media are not providing enough coverage of this world, accounting for 18 to 20 billion euros and contributing to GNP considerably. There are some sectors that contribute to the gross national product to a lesser extent, but they get more coverage by the media. So people are better informed about them. As a matter of fact, we have several examples of excellence. I've seen them during my visit at the trade fair and in the different halls. Italian excellence, so the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Business made in Italy are providing support to these companies and encourage them to export. Let's not forget that these businesses get most of their sales by exporting their products. Well, so we should actually encourage national domestic media, including the TV. They tend to provide more coverage for entertainment rather than agricultural machinery. Well, that's a personal comment. Well, I should say that generally speaking, we're not very good at explaining or presenting and raising awareness on our excellence. This is an example of excellence in Italy: mechanization, agricultural mechanization, and ceramics, for instance, is another example of excellence, or the tanning industry is another area of excellence, and the packaging industry is another excellence, the recycling industry, the glass-making industry, the fashion industry. So very many examples of excellence, flower growing example. So there are excellent examples of excellence at the European, at an international level. We should raise awareness on excellent examples of excellence. Thank you very much, Mr. Undersecretary. Thank you very much for joining us today, and thank you to all our journalists. And goodbye to everyone from EIMA International 2024.